Hello and welcome back to episode 12 of Ask a DM, the D&D Q&A show that I do every Sunday here on YouTube, Twitch and Facebook. And I bring on a guest and I'm going to let the guest introduce themselves. If you want to go ahead
Hey
and introduce
everyone.
yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm the HypeGoblin on all social media. I'm so excited to be here. But oh gosh, I just forgot everything that I do.
that's not a problem. Well, luckily for you, I've put
Mhm.
everything down in the description. So
Yeah,
if
just
you want to
search
check it
the
out.
HypeGoblin and I'll come up. Just Google me.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to be looking. So you usually will be a player on stream.
hmm
Am I right in
Yes.
saying? But we're going to be digging into your DM roots a bit
Yeah.
to see what you can give to the viewers today. All right. So first, we always kick it off with some generic questions. So first, when
hmm
you're a DM, do you homebrew or do you run modules usually?
I have done both. I've run part of the Candlekeep Mysteries campaigns. I've run a few of those. I've run. I just wrote my very first adventure, and I'm getting ready to run that. I might be running it on stream next weekend. I'm not sure, but I am currently playtesting that with my friends. And I've done a lot of other people's homebrew stuff. The mysteries they're the only like 5e official content I run, but I'm a big fan of a lot of creators out there who write their own campaigns. So I get a lot from the DMs Guild and
That's really
Patreon.
cool. Are you looking to release that adventure you're going to be running for people to pick up?
Maybe we'll see how this.
Depends how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see how the playtest goes. I play with a lot of veteran DMs, so I know that with just the playthrough that we're going to be doing, I'm going to get a ton of really great feedback from them, and I'm fairly certain that I will release it at some point. But there's always that imposter syndrome of like, this isn't good enough. I couldn't possibly write something that other people would want. But I mean, I've been wrong before, so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you never know until you put it out there,
Mhm.
really, and then
Yeah,
hopefully you don't get slated too bad, and it all goes well.
hopefully.
Okay, we got a few people coming in as well. So we got How to D&D Fred over there saying this should be an interesting chat. I have no idea how you say that name, but yeah,
That's one of my longtime followers, Kryzakon.
there you go, Quasicant.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Hey,
you
Kryz.
for telling me how to say that because
Yeah.
I was about to butcher it. We got Jen as well coming in saying woo, and J Bob 88. So
Hi, J Bob. Hi, honey. That's my husband.
that's handy.
Mhm.
So if you do have any questions for us, just chuck them
Mhm.
in the chat as we're going along as well, and we'll make sure to get to them. The next question is: so when you're DMing, what level do you prefer to DM at? What level do you prefer your players at?
I don't really have a preferred level. I like the chaos that comes with higher level campaigns and play styles. I really like level 1. I like my favorite campaign that I ever ran was the Rick and Morty dungeon. That's the other. See, I've just remembered that I even ran that. I killed someone in the first minute of the game. At the very, I think you start out at level 1 in that, and it's such a joy, such a joy when that happens.
That's definitely an interesting story. Maybe
Yeah,
one we'll have to get into later on.
for sure.
It's actually surprising how many people, when I ask that question, say level 1 is their
hmm
favorite. I think level 1's my favorite as well, but it's
hmm
just I feel like that's the point where the players are still bumbling through and don't
Yeah,
really
for
know
sure.
what their character is, and that's part of the fun. Okay, well, we're going to jump into some questions over from Twitter. And as I said, give us some questions in the chat as well as we go along. So this one's actually from YouTube. So the Cleric Corner asked, what is the best class in the game? And why is it Cleric?
Because clerics can both heal their parties and they can also be incredibly heavy hitters. One of the characters that I cosplayed very early on in my TikTok career was a character that I modeled after Sailor Saturn, and I made her a Shatterkai Death Cleric. and
Nice.
she could dole out tons of healing, but she could also take down people in like 2 hits because I think I did. She was Death Cleric with Polearm Master, and then there was like something else where she could just drop like extra damage on like both hits, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed her. I still enjoy her. I'm still playing her.
Well, so this is, I guess, the opposite end of the question. What would you say is the worst class in the game at the moment?
The worst class?
Or
I
let's go down the route of which class would you least like to play?
I'm actually going to look at every class that's currently in. I know everyone likes to crap on Ranger, but I personally like Ranger. I think honestly Druid.
Okay.
I
That's
think
interesting.
Wildfire Druid is a lot of fun. But I've played a few subclasses of Druid at this point, and they were just kind of meh for me. I think it's because the wild shape and then you don't have access to your cool Druid magic. I'm currently playing a Circle of Spores Druid, and I really like the way that wild shape is used to do a symbiotic entity. In that, it's very different from any other Druid that I've played. But I also play a like your traditional like I turn into an animal Druid, and I've DM'd for folks who play that, and it's just it's so limiting. I feel like I don't know. I think they should at least have access to their magic while they're wild shaped if they have their cognitive abilities. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the most loved classes usually. So you're probably gonna get flamed in
Sorry.
chat for that. We've got Quiz coming in saying that Bard is the best class as well. I am also a fan of Bard. And Fred from How to DnD saying hi, Shrike. Hey, thank you for coming.
Hi, Fred. Nice to meet you.
Cool. Let's go on to the next question then. So this one's from over at Twitter. So Ready Body Gaming asked, "What is a time, big or small, when your players pulled something so buck wild you actually had to take a moment to formulate a response?"
The very first game that I ever DM'd, it was the Rick and Morty dungeon crawl. It's like 30 rooms that you go through in this just absurd dungeon. And it was supposed to be a hack and slash. Like when you read through it, it says like this is supposed to be old school hack and slash. You're supposed to fight everything. Like the goblins have eaten the loot, so you have to kill the goblins to get all the loot. And my party, being the wonderful role players and little shits that they are, they decided that they were going to go through and they were going to talk to every single goblin. And they were dungeon inspectors. And they wanted to know about the OSHA violations and was everyone getting lunch breaks? And were you getting your 2 15-minute breaks a day? And they unionized the goblins. And I think I had to voice 30 goblins. And I had to figure out how to take it from a hack and slash to a heavy role play dungeon.
That's pretty harsh for your first time DMing as well.
You know, they threw me in the deep end, but it made me a stronger DM for it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely learned by being thrown into the fire, I guess. Definitely. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting story there.
Yeah.
So we got a question from Why Scott. What's your most brain squirrel inducing thing you can come across in games? Not quite sure what it means by brain squirrel inducing.
I know what the Y Scott is one of my another longtime follower. Brain squirrels is like that ADHD moment where you just get absolutely distracted. And for me, it's overcomplicated rules. If I have to read a lot, or if there's a long-winded explanation of how a spell works, both as a player and as a DM, my brain just clicks out, and all of a sudden, I'm just like, I wonder what's for lunch. Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be running a game. Yeah, just do the thing. Just do the thing. Yeah, anything that's very long-winded will instantly just my brain goes in a totally different direction.
Yeah, definitely. We put a rule in when we DM that basically we don't look at the rules
Mhm,
in game, and then
mhm.
afterwards we look at it and work out if we made the right ruling or not. And that seems to work much better because
Yeah.
some of my early games we would just sit there trying to find the right page
Mhm.
and read loads of text and try and work it out. But now we just make a ruling, get on with the game, and then later
Yeah.
can work out if we were wrong or right. And it doesn't usually
Yeah.
make that big of a
I do the
difference.
same thing too. Like, as long as my players are having a good time, I really couldn't care less.
Yeah,
I don't care
exactly.
about making the right call. Just have fun with it. I'll figure it out later. Just someone remember to write down notes because I don't take notes when I DM.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the biggest lesson any new DM can take. Just try
Yeah.
to have fun. That is it. We got How to D&D saying the Rick and Morty D&D is just a big goof off,
Mhm.
which, yeah,
It
it
is.
definitely is. And then we got Rich Mary coming by as well saying, hey, so thank you for coming, Rich.
Hey,
Here's
welcome.
another UK guy, so we can represent.
Nice.
And Fred asking a question: what do you dislike and like about 5th edition's Dungeons and Dragons?
Um, oh goodness. I really like the more progressive moves that 5e has made recently. Um, considering the race rewrite that they redid of the Drow. I
Yeah,
think that was right on point and what everyone was looking for. And I like the addition of rules to the game that you can use these or you can just continue playing how you've been playing. Like, they're not they're going in a path that is more like you can do incremental changes. They're not putting out a whole 6th edition that you have to buy right now so that you have the newest thing. You can still play the new content, but you don't necessarily have to adopt the new rules. I really like that.
yeah,
And honestly, what I don't like is it has nothing to do with the content or the game itself. I don't like some of the diehards for D&D. I don't like people who are very stuck in their ways of this is the right way to do things. I regularly
yeah,
point those people towards the I think it's on page like 130 something of the DM's guide where they're like, these are the rules. You can use them or don't.
yeah, definitely. I think it's Mark Sherlock Humes who said that D&D has he's like a streamer that's been streaming for ages, and he said that D&D's got one of the worst backseat gamers that he's come across because people
Yeah.
will be like, oh, you should have done this, but obviously in the moment you do what you think your character would
Mhm.
do, and it's not as
Yeah.
black and white as that.
And sometimes you forget things and then you get that backseater in chat and that's an instant block for me. If someone comes into my streams and they're like, actually that okay, well, go do that ear table. This is mine.
Yeah,
Bye.
definitely. Yeah, you see that quite a lot in the
Mhm.
Critical Role chat as well. When if you watch them
Oh, do
live
you
until
really? I don't watch
yeah,
CR, so I don't know. I think I'm the only person who doesn't watch CR.
yeah, probably, but
It's
that's
fine.
fine. We got a question from Mitch as well. What's your favorite non-Forgotten Realms setting?
My favorite non-Forgotten World setting is actually my best friend's homebrew world. She's in chat. I know she's in a game right now, so she's like only partially paying attention. Jen, if you're listening, I'm talking about you right now. But she has spent years playing and DMing, and she has this beautiful world, Ashenfell. And I'm now in my it was the first campaign that I ever did. I did with her. And I'm now in my second campaign with her, and she created a world that is so diverse and beautiful down to down to how taxes work in the different countries that she has created and built over the years. Like, she is it's a lot of people can like go into detail about their world and you're just like, really? But to hear her talk about it, it is so she does it in a way that's so immersive and so wonderful. I cannot tell you how much I uh enjoy that. But yeah, as far as if there's any pre-written non-Forgotten Realms settings, I do I don't know.
That's fine. That
Yeah.
was a very good answer. And
Yeah.
Jen, speak of the devil, and she appears. Here you go. She's in, and you got some other fans here as well
Mhm.
of the settings. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool to see. I'll say actually mine. I like the Dark Sun, which hasn't been done in 5e yet, but I just really like dark fantasy, I
Was
guess.
that 4th edition when that was out?
I think there was a 4th edition version. Yeah,
Okay.
I only know it from reading it in books. To be honest, I've never actually played in it, but I just think
Yeah.
it's a very darker take, I guess, to D&D.
Yeah.
So
I suppose Dragonlance would be a non-Forgotten Realms setting. I think that I've read a little bit of that. I've been picking up vintage like D&D settings books, and I have a few of those, and they look interesting. And I like that they tie in so heavily to a book series. So I guess that would be mine. I don't know much about it, but from what I have dipped my toe into, that looks really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the OG, one of the quite a while ago now. I think that came around. I can't remember when, but yeah, they're also quite good. Cool. On to the next one. So, Magic Missile Pod asked, "You're living your life, minding your business, and then suddenly, with the flick of your wrist, you can cast any 5e cantrip. Which cantrip is it, and why?"
Oh, Eldritch Blast. No, hands down, Eldritch Blast. To be able to just like pew pew anything that gets in my way. Heck yeah.
That's pretty badass, I guess.
What would you take?
I don't know. I was thinking more practical than just gunning people down in the streets.
Well, I mean, you could also use it like, say you're gardening, and like the most annoying thing when you're trying to plant a large shrub or tree is hitting a large rock. Like, you could just be Eldritch blasting that rock until it's just gravel. Like,
yeah,
there's some practical uses.
Yeah, I guess there are some practical uses than just gunning people down. That is true. The one that came to my mind was mending, but I guess that's a bit of a boring one. But it would just fix things nice and easy.
Yeah, that'd be a really practical one. Really
Mage
practical.
Hand would be quite good as well, I guess. Message, maybe, could be quite fun.
I feel like Message would get you in trouble a lot.
Oh yeah, but gunning people down with Eldritch Blast wouldn't.
Hey, it's all in how you use it. I would use it only for good.
Okay, that's fine then. You'll be enrolling in the army in no time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. On to the next one. So you got Mythical Magpie asked, "Would it be out of the question to have people donate their bodies to necromancy where legal $4 to their families for ethical necromancy?" I thought this was a really interesting question, so I thought I'd chuck it in there.
Yeah, I love that question. As someone who plans to donate their body to a body farm where decay and decomposition is studied scientifically, I would be all for that. I mean, obviously, you would have to set up ethical necromancy in a way where, like, like the terms of service of like what's your body going to be used for, what are the purposes once the necromancer's done with your body, what happens to it, does it return to your family, are you entombed somewhere? But yeah, I mean, as long as like it's ethically sound, I mean, why not?
I think it's definitely a good story starter for like I can imagine you coming across this necromancer and having this conversation with them as they're trying to recruit people into their ethical necromancy, trying to get the players involved to sign over for some gold. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting question, and I would be completely up for putting it in my game. Definitely.
Yeah,
it's
down for that.
Definitely a unique view on necromancy, I guess. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like necromancy in their game because they view it as evil. I guess this is a way to make it a little less evil, maybe, if it's ethical.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how it's presented. Because yeah, you can go super evil, and typically that's what our depictions in modern media are of necromancy. But also, like, the majority of people play hags evil, and I'm currently in a campaign where I'm in a hag coven and they're good.
Yeah.
So like it all depends on what you want to flip on its head.
Definitely, especially when you're homebrewing, you can do whatever you want with your world.
Yeah.
Cool. So on to the next one is DDM Podcast asks, who is the most unforgettable NPC you've ever created as a DM or encountered as a player? Does anything come to mind?
Oh gosh. I haven't really created any of my own NPCs yet. I think one of the most interesting ones I've encountered as a player was in my very first campaign. I came into the campaign when the rest of the table was already at like I think level 5 or 6. And they had encountered this archfey that was supposed to be like one of the bad guys and was supposed to like be this really bad dude. Like he was mean to them the first time they met him, but my character was meeting him and we saved him in combat that session. And they were telling my character that like this is a bad person, like you shouldn't associate with them. And I was like, well, my character is actually really nice. Like she would give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and he hasn't been mean to her yet. So she gave this NPC a chance, and ended up by the end of the campaign, he flipped his alignment and married her. And now they are NPCs in our current campaign, and they have 2 twin boys and a little girl on the way. So it was really hard to go against the party and maintain that relationship in the campaign for part of it. But in the end, it was one of the most interesting storylines I think I've played through.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a big flip from the bad guy into being a good guy with kids in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any you've created as a DM that come to mind?
I haven't created much of my own yet. I have a character that I just randomly rolled up today. I think she'll become an NPC. She's a Shatterkai warlock. I think I'm gonna tie her into some older campaign lore from one of my friends' campaigns. But I think she's very bored with just life in general, and she was a lot of fun to play. And I think I'll just turn her into an NPC so I can keep playing.
Yeah, I do that quite a lot. I just make characters and then they end up in NPCs in my worlds later on down the line. So I've got one called Crazy Leo, which is a Tabaxi College of Swords bard, and he's just all about having fights for the sake of having a good story. And he's crazy, hence the name Crazy Leo. And he ended up, I played him in a one shot, and then he ended up an NPC in my world as well. So
oh, that sounds fantastic. There's a character I never got to play. I think I'm going to play her in as an NPC when I start DMing more. She's a tailor, and she's indebted to a hag, and she uses her like maneuverings throughout the town. She's supposed to be originally in Victorian London, so she's a little steampunky. And that was the vibe of the campaign we were going to play in. But I'm gonna play her as a bit of a spy for someone in a future campaign where, I mean, no one ever thinks about their tailors. Like the conversations that you have in front of people that are just supposed to be the help, like she'll learn so much about the wealthy elite just from just being in the room and hemming their pants. So I think she's going to be a lot of fun to put in somewhere.
I think it's fun to play characters that are just normal people to a degree. I played one which was a chef once, and just was loved to be in a chef, and then obviously went on a quest to become more, but always came back to just being a chef. And I think that's a good way to root your characters. Cool. We got an interesting question from Fred here. So why do you think more women are playing Dungeons and Dragons now, if it was actually a change?
I don't think more are playing. I just think that we're more comfortable playing publicly. For a very, very long time, it was gatekept. The way women are treated often by men at gaming tables and in gaming spaces is something that is very and this is from my own personal experience. It's very predatory, and it's very uncomfortable. So I think with technology being what it is and there being women only gaming spaces, I think there's just been more of an avenue for us to find tables that we're comfortable playing in. Because for a very, very long time, it was a boys' club, and that's just not an uncomfortable environment to be in. It should be an escape for everyone, and when you have to be on your guard, it isn't an escape in any sense of the term. So
Yeah, and
I don't think more are playing. I think you're just realizing how many do play.
yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's the same in gaming as a whole, not just Dungeons and Dragons as well,
Yeah.
where more and more people are more comfortable coming out and saying yes, they do enjoy games.
Yeah.
But you still do get problems on online games and
Oh yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah, it's like any other niche category. There will be predators that prey on people that they feel are weaker or inferior, and luckily TTRPG Twitter is really good about weeding those people out. So I think the more mainstream D&D and TTRPGs become, the better it will slowly become. But it's definitely going to be a process, and it's still not great, but it's getting there. It's doing a lot better.
Yeah, and I think there's two big steps here. The one is that you and others are now streaming it and showing other women that it's okay to talk about it and to be part of it. And then the other part is men as well challenging it when people do get predatory, because I think a lot of men will still stay quiet even if they don't actually disagree with it. They won't challenge it. So
yeah, and it has to be too. You have to be willing to speak up when there aren't women in the room. It's not just there's some people who will do it performatively when there is a girl around, but if your buddies are being gross about women when there aren't women in the room, that's not a safe space to bring a woman into to be a gamer. I'm very lucky that I have the male and male presenting friends that I have. They are all incredibly protective of me and the other women who game with us. And I have a very wonderful community, and I'm wonderful, wonderful men and women and non-binary people in that community who don't tolerate anything like that. So I'm very fortunate that I started gaming in safe spaces, and I have been slowly cultivating my own safe space. Because it can only get better from here the more people play.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a good question, Nathan. It's a good topic to be talking about. So, Rich is asking, how much backstory is too much backstory for a level 1 character?
No such thing. I have characters that I will write pages for. I will have characters that I will just have a few lines for. One of the players in our Sunday morning game, who's currently in chat. Hi, RJ. I don't think he gave our DM a backstory for his character until like having played that character for 2 months. It all backstory comes when you're ready to give it and when you have a feel for the character. It doesn't matter how big it is or how in depth it is. It's all something that you can develop over time, and you can choose to add to a small backstory later when you think, hey, I think that this is something my character would have in their backstory. I'm going to go ahead and add this in. But yeah, I don't think if you come with no backstory or 15 pages, just be aware that the DM may or may not use it.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing there that I was going to bring up is the more backstory you give your DM, the easier it is for them to tie your backstory into the story. If you turn up with nothing, then they can't tie it in. But saying that, I have had the situation where players turned up with nothing, and in a couple of sessions in, they've heard some lore about something and been like, oh, that's really interesting. I would like to tie my character into that. And that's completely fine as well.
Yeah, totally.
As too much, well, I had one player give me an 18-page backstory, and that was quite a lot to read, but I did it, and it was a pretty good backstory, luckily. But I guess if you got like a 25-page backstory, which was not very good, then it might be difficult. But I think you still have to, if they're as excited to play their character to write 18 pages, then you as a DM should be okay with that.
Yeah, I feel like backstories are more for bringing the character to life for the player than they are for the DM. The DM provides the framework of the story, and I've never thought that it was the DM's job to highlight character backstories or bring them in at all. I've always felt that a player's backstory is something that they should bring up themselves as they become comfortable with the party, and the party becomes friends and eventually becomes usually found family is the experience that most people have, I think, unless you're playing a campaign where everyone's suspicious of one another. But I think backstory is something that's very personal to players, and it will never be more important to anyone at the table than it is to the player. And I think bring in as much or as little as you want to tell your party.
Yeah, definitely. And RJ saying it also helps that the DMs are very accommodating. My character builds have changed over time quite a bit, and I think
Oh yeah.
that is a big part of it. It shouldn't just be the player that is making the backstory. It should be the DM as a sort of collaborative thing along the way as well. Cool. So we've got Kayla. How would you introduce or present D&D to someone who grew up being told it's bad or evil?
First of all, I would ask them if they think Lord of the Rings is bad or evil, because that's essentially what a D&D adventure looks like. I come from a very religious upbringing, so I identify with this question a bit. And you have to kind of deprogram yourself to think of good and evil as what other people tell you is good and evil. Good and evil is subjective. What's good for the US is bad for North Korea. What's good for North Korea is bad for the US. So it's all subjective. It's all it's all a matter of opinion, honestly. So I would say if someone wants to give it a try, take them through a campaign where they're the hero, where it is if they want to play something that is very solidly good versus evil, communicate that to a DM and communicate that to the table so everyone's on the same page, and slowly help yourself ease, or the players or the DM or whoever is coming to it for the first time, ease into it that way, because who wouldn't want to play through a game where you get to be the hero like that? Every board game you ever play, you're the hero. Like D&D is no different. You can be the hero or you can be the villain, and both are equally cathartic in different ways.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is trying to convince them to just try. And it can be just a little short, 2-hour session, maybe even an hour session, just to show them what D&D is. I think a lot of people still don't understand what D&D is. They just are like, oh, that's where you summon demons, isn't it?
Yeah, I would even suggest, because Dungeons and Dragons for older generations does have that satanic panic notation to it. Call it something completely different, or play a 2d6 system. Introduce them to a different fantasy system. There's Quest now, which I've heard is very, very good. There's 2d6 systems where you're just rolling 2 die throughout the whole thing, and it's mainly storytelling. There's one shots where you're playing like bears trying to steal honey. If anyone's played Honey Heist, you'll know what I'm talking about. So there's a whole lot of things where you can introduce someone to TTRPGs, and if they have that hang up about Dungeons and Dragons because they were told like, oh, satanic panic stuff, oh, it's evil, introduce them to a different one first, and then later on down the line, once they get used to it, be like, here's the player's handbook for D&D. Why don't we take a look at this together and see what you think about it then? Because once they look through it, it's going to be the same as any other TTRPG, just different rules.
Yeah, definitely. And if you really do struggle to get them to even try any of them, you can always get them to watch something with you. Just be like, oh, look at this clip on YouTube. Look at this little 1 hour stream here. And then, yeah, they can see other people playing it and realize actually there's nothing evil or bad about it. Hopefully. Depends who you watch, I guess. If you accidentally just watch a Satanist stream, that might be different.
Don't bring them to my stream. My DM's nickname is Satan. Take them over to someone else's stream first. Bring them to mine later.
There you go. So Shin family, how can I spice up combat encounters? Have you got any tips for this?
Well, first it's going to depend on what kind of encounters you've been running. Feel free to give me more info in the chat on that. Are you the kind of DM who just throws one enemy at your players, they take down that one enemy, and then it's over? Have you tried running waves of combat where they have a lot of smaller enemies, maybe a bunch of kobolds with pack tactics that they have to go to, so you're wearing them down over time, and then they get to the boss and have to deal with the boss? Are you using the environment to your advantage? Jen, who's in chat with us, is absolutely amazing at using environmental factors to change up combat, and suddenly we're rolling dexterity rolls because the mountainside is sliding down after someone casts booming blade, or there's a cave in and then we have to do a skill check to see if we survive the cave in after the combat. There's a lot of things that you can do to spice up combat that is literally just pulling from the environment around your players.
Yeah, definitely. I think, funny enough, this is actually going to be the next video that comes out on my YouTube channel, is about how to make your combat encounters better. So I've been writing a script on this, so that's nice and handy. So one big one was the environment, you've already said. I think people do not use it enough, and it should be used.
Yeah, I'd say also, if you're playing an intelligent creature, play them as intelligent combatants.
Yeah.
And I mean, make sure that your table's ready for it. But if you're fighting against an archmage, they probably have counterspell. Counterspell something.
Yeah, definitely. And with intelligence as well, I always like having the bad guys talk to each other and to the players. That's always a good way to make it more engaging.
Oh,
and then
definitely.
I think a lot of people who ask this question, what they're actually asking is, how can I speed up my combat? Because it's because the players aren't as experienced, or they're not as experienced, and it ends up being a bit of a slog because it's just like, roll dice. Oh, I hit someone for 6 damage. Okay, roll dice. Oh, I hit. So
I would
that's
say
another thing as well.
Yeah, I'd say if you're having trouble with the speed of combat and you do have new players, maybe when you say, okay, roll for initiative, after everyone rolls for initiative, that's a good time to take a 5-minute bathroom break and say, okay, everyone, look over your sheets. We're going to take 5 minutes, refresh your drinks, look over your sheets, look over what your character can do. Because I switched my cleric from cleric to blood hunter. And sometimes I need a little break before combat so I can look over all those bonus actions, because I did it at level 11 instead of level 1. So there's a lot that I can do now that I'm still learning. So just get into the habit of asking your tables to review their sheets before combat. And also, we've started doing something that I am absolutely loving on our stream game, Nexus Adventures. We've done it twice now in combat, where the players have taken control of the NPCs that are traveling with the party. And the players are running the 2 NPCs, and then our DM is running everything that we're fighting. And it has changed the flow of combat so much for that table that it is a much faster combat now. Granted, we still have a lot of turns because we'll be fighting against larger groups at our current level. We'll be fighting against waves of enemies at our current level. But it's been a really nice change of pace that all of that isn't on her. And we can kind of take on some of that labor for her.
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a lot of conversation in the chat as well about this one. So Jen also saying use environment is just as living as your battles. RJ saying counterspell that with Riverfire.
RJ's
Be
pure
evil in your world.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That one though, I love session zeros, and that is something that I always advise multiple session zeros for DMs. If you're coming up against big bads, like a few sessions prior, like have that talk with your table. Like, hey, you're coming against someone who's very intelligently evil. If you go down in battle, like the stakes are higher, they might counterspell the revivify, they might do this, they might do that. Don't tell them exactly what you're going to do, but give them scenarios that they can agree to, because yes, getting that counterspell revivify combo going in battle is definitely scary. But it's a scary that I think people should be mentally prepared for, because we can also feel a little mean. We don't want to feel mean.
Yeah, definitely. RJ also saying that I've been meaning to do a hassle where you roll 5 initiatives at the start of the game, and you can use whatever hint you want when combat comes up, which is quite an interesting idea. I assume once you've used the int, it's crossed out, so you you don't want to blow your best initiatives early if it's
Yeah.
harder stuff later on.
Yeah, I know. I've played in a few of RJ's games, and he does more smaller combat sometimes in sessions, and I could see that being that could be really a really cool homebrew option. So I'll play test it for you if you ever run another campaign.
There you go. Then you can let us know.
I will.
Okay, we got another question in from Fred. So, what do you think is missing from Dungeons and Dragons 5e? Is there anything you thought is missing so far?
I think Witchlight is filling a lot of what I thought was missing, because a lot of the adventures were geared towards combat, and for the longest time, I wanted something that was just you could role play through it using the mechanics and the framework of 5e, and they didn't have anything really officially that was like that. It was kind of up to the DM to like allow combats to slide and stuff. But the adventures up until now have really been very much heavy on a combat every session or nearly every session. And I only glanced over Witchlight because I got cast in a streamed campaign, so I didn't look over it fully. But it's nice to have something out where you can potentially play through the entire adventure and negotiate every encounter rather than fight every encounter. And I can see that being very appealing to people who aren't necessarily that into combat.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's setting stuff. So I would quite like to see more stuff based in space or like space travel.
That'd be cool. I want the Spelljammers in 5e.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the biggest thing for me that is missing.
I'd like for the Forgotten Realms to be found. I think I'd like that.
There you go. That's an adventure idea for you.
Yeah.
Finding the Forgotten Realms. There you go. That's got a good ring to it, actually. Put that in DM's Guild.
Yeah. If anyone wants to take that idea, my email is available over on my page. Feel free to email me. We can negotiate for that title.
There you go. Right, I think we've caught up with all the questions from chat. So if there's any more coming in from chat, just chuck them now. But we'll go back to the Twitter ones. So what is one thing you've learned from the characters you've played? Ask on Elizabeth.
Oh, I've learned a lot about growth from a psychological standpoint and what that looks like. I come from we were talking about this before, but I come from a acting and writing background where you do study, you analytically study a character psychologically when you go to play them or you go to write about them. And I think playing in role-playing scenarios has very much helped me learn to analyze in the moment what a character would do. And I think that's been invaluable to me in many ways. And I think I've learned a lot about different parts of myself, because while I never make a character that is like me in a campaign, there's always aspects of me or of my life or of experiences I've had that I've tied into characters. And I think it's helped me to know myself better a lot more in some ways.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, their first character is usually who they would hope they was if they was in that situation. So you can sort of extrapolate a bit more about you if you play those kinds of characters.
Yeah.
I've not come from any sort of acting background or anything like that. So playing characters, it was quite hard for me at the beginning to get my head into those characters' heads, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think over time I've got better at that, and it's also probably leaked over to real life as well, at being able to understand other people's heads and where they're coming from a lot of the time as well.
Especially when you know people. Yeah. Especially when you know people really well. Like you can kind of understand when disagreements do arise or when they are acting a way that's different than you would expect anyone else to act. Like you kind of say, oh, that makes sense for who they are and what their backstory is. kind of like with the character in D&D.
Yeah, definitely. I think D&D is one of those things that it probably would help anyone to play because you get so many good skills, communication, teamwork, working under pressure and stuff like that from playing D&D. So everyone should give it a go. And it's not going to be for everyone, but yeah, cool. We got a question from RJ. Ever have a character that was fun in concept but hard to execute?
Yeah, it was Delilah. I played a bard who only worked because we had a Twilight cleric, and that healing aura that they have is so OP. But I played a glass cannon bard who was just she was young, 20 something, naive and dumb, and just did whatever she wanted and got. It was so hard because I'm such a when I normally play characters, I normally somehow end up the face of the group, and I end up leading at certain points. But I couldn't do that with her. So there would be the logical, mature response that I wanted to give as a player, but I'd have to say no. That character won't do this. She's just gonna throw a jar full of flour at something and hope that she can light that flower on fire, and it's it was Delilah. It was Delilah.
I like that how quickly that answer came to your head as well. You knew immediately. I in my early days of D&D made the character that I feel like a lot of people make, which is like the dark, gritty, slightly emo fighter character that sounded awesome, and in my head had a really dark backstory and was going to be really cool. And then when it actually came to it, was not cool at all and did not work at all because you've got dice, so you can't control how cool you are or not.
I really struggle to play the darker characters. I the one that I've played I play her on Sunday mornings on Twitch. She has a very dark backstory. She's my first stream character that I ever did. I don't know why I picked a dark character for my first stream character, but it's there. We talk at the table all the time, just to do check-ins and stuff. And she is one of the harder characters to navigate because you want to play these dark, gritty characters, but at the same time, then you have to talk about that dark, gritty backstory. And you're just like, oh, I really don't want to talk about this. It's 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I don't want to talk about this traumatic story. So it can be really difficult. And then like the dice are always just like, nah, you're not that cool. you're just some chucklehead with a sword.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the biggest learning curve for me, was that the dice have a different plan for you than your backstory does, but that's all part of the fun now. We got Wise Scott saying, do you have another character you haven't played yet, pretty much ready to go, that you're just waiting for the right game for?
Yeah, I mean, I have my I talked about her earlier, the Taylor that I wanted to play. I had a campaign for her, but unfortunately that fell through. I have another one. I have a tiefling artificer alchemist that I want to play him like the best crafts beer brewer so bad. And I want to go full himbo and I just want to be everyone's best friend. And then I think all of my other characters, they've come in. I have a sorcerer that I want to play, a Clockwork Soul Sorcerer, because I saw someone talking about the weird things you can do with time and time manipulation in combat, and I really wanted to give that a try. So I have her in the sidelines, but all of my other characters, they've come in at one point or another, either during our one-shots or either on stream or in my private games. They've all come in as a character at some point or another when I need a break from my main character.
Cool. I think the only character that comes to mind for me is I've got an idea, but the world would have to be very low magic. So I've got an idea which is like basically an enchanter, but in a very low magic world, and basically they'd be a stage magician, sort of like Darren Brown, if you know who Darren Brown is.
That's cool. I like that.
But actually, rather than it being fake magic, it's real
Mhm.
magic. But
I
yeah,
think
it would only really work in a low magic world, I think.
it would be fun to play a magician who thinks they have magic but really doesn't
Yeah,
in a low
definitely.
magic setting.
I also like the idea of playing a character that actually isn't powerful at all, but just has
Mhm.
really good artifacts.
Mhm.
So, like, has the disadvantage of if someone somehow managed to get the artifacts off of them, they're actually just a regular guy.
Mhm.
I think that would be quite fun as well.
Yeah, they kind of find the Iron Man suit, but they
Yeah,
have no
pretty
special
much.
power. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty good, I think. We got another question from Fred here. So, do you think there is really a big difference between LARP and tabletop role games? And saying that he has been involved with LARP in the past. Have you done any LARPing in the past?
I have not. I didn't get into cosplaying my characters until the pandemic hit as sort of a creative outlet, just in addition to my games. I really want to go on a LARP. I really want to take these characters out into the real world. I don't uh I don't know much about LARPing. I want to learn, but to me it just sounds like the role playing portion in real life without the dice. And I think that sounds fantastic. There's a park here in the U.S. in I think in Utah called Evermore, and that's another thing. It's like LARP meets Disney World, and that's another thing that I really want to just go and experience. And you get to go on like adventures and stuff, and talk to NPCs in the real in the theme park. So yeah, that sort of stuff. I don't think it's too far removed from tabletop role playing games. You're just not carrying your dice around with you, or maybe you are. Maybe you're just throwing dice at each other when you're in a fight. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference really is the
Mhm.
how physical LARP is
Mhm.
compared to tabletop role playing games. Obviously,
Yeah.
when you're playing them, you're just sat there and, as you said, rolling dice. So you've
Mhm.
got the chance aspect. Whereas
So
LARP, you have to be quite physically fit. I think I'm a
so
big
when you
believer.
LARP, is there always a fight, or is there LARPing that's just like kind of like those murder mystery dinner parties where you can just go and like solve a little mystery like the Scooby Doo game?
Yeah, I imagine there would be stuff like that.
Okay.
I've never actually been done LARPing, so
Mhm.
my only experience is from Mark Humes, who's another YouTuber that did a
Mhm.
vlog or has done vlogs when he's been LARPing.
Okay.
And it sounds like there are sort of like combat incursions you can go on, or you could just go to the tavern and get drunk and pretend to be your character, or you
That's where
can,
I'd be. That's where all my characters would be.
yeah. Or he did say there was one actually which they set up in a cave, and it was like
Ooh.
it was like a horror type escape
Mhm.
room type thing, which sounds quite
That's
fun as well.
cool. I think
And
at Gen Con, I believe RJ told me that they had a D&D themed escape room that you could go do. And that was really cool. I'd like to go try that too.
yeah, definitely, there's a good business idea there for around the US. Yeah, Fred saying LARP does it all. So yeah, I imagine
Okay.
there would be murder mystery stuff as well.
I'd be down
Uh,
for that.
there's also quite a few people who were definitely enjoying your craft brew, saying Wally DM would enjoy that as well if he was here. RJ saying there are Vampire the Masquerade LARP sessions that are just really weird tea parties. If you're into that.
That I mean, I would go to that too just to experience it.
Yeah. And Jen saying she also wouldn't want to fight in LARP, just be the potion seller. I believe you can be like in the hospital, I guess, area as
Uh-huh.
well, and you could be like a
Oh, that's
healer.
cool. That's really cool.
Because when you get injured in battle, you go back to a place, I believe, and then you get
Mhm.
healed and go back out again. So you could be that kind of character as well.
Can I work in the tavern? Can I but like just
I don't see
leave
why
me
not.
there.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm sure you could. Okay, cool. Right, we're coming sort of to the end of the show. We've got 6 minutes left. So if anyone's got any
Okay.
last minute questions, chuck them in the chat. We'll take one from Twitter while we wait. So Lone Colossus asks, what video game setting do you most want to run a game in? And how would you alter it if you did? Does anything come to mind?
I'd really like to run a game in Stardew Valley's world. That will always be my comfort game. I have bought it on so many different consoles and platforms. Every cell phone I've had, I think I've purchased it since I discovered the game. I would put it in there. I don't know that I'd really have to alter much because there's combat in it if you go into the mines. And they get progressively harder. So it's very plausible that you could have your little farming sim plus all of the town folks NPC and still get that combat in because you have to go down to get the mine to do the mining to upgrade your weapons in the game. So I think that's totally plausible.
There you go. So Stardew Valley, the perfect D&D game.
It could be.
Potentially.
Mhm.
The first thing that came to my mind was Witcher, but that's a bit of an easy answer because it's
Mhm.
already fantasy-esque.
Yeah, they have their own TTRPG now too.
Yeah. And then the other one that came to mind was Mass Effect as well, but that's less D&D like, I guess, because that would be more like I forgot what the sci-fi one's called. Starfinder, I guess, sort of more like Starfinder, maybe. Okay, so a question from Fred here. You'll be asked on the spot here. You don't have to answer right away, but would you like an invite to the Dungeon Master Roundtable? Shrike is already a part of it, so
I
that's
don't. What is this?
so it's a Discord community where basically we all jump on a call and answer some questions, and then
Okay.
we cut it up into different videos.
Mhm.
So say there was 4 people on the call, there would be 4 questions, and then it's cut up and it's put onto everyone's channel. So it's just an easier way to make content for everyone.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
So yeah, if you
Yes.
there you go, she's in. If you give her a Discord invite and then yeah, see from there. Right,
Yeah.
any last minute questions from anyone? We'll go to Twitter again. So Icarus Games UK asks, how often do you use extreme weather rules, if at
As
all?
as often as is necessary to progress the story. I don't think I don't it the travel stuff can become a real slog if you put too much mechanics into it. Like, yes, roll your random encounters. Roll to see if there's like a thunderstorm or something that comes along. But I think when you bog games down with too much weather stuff, it's just it it's exhausting. But if it serves a purpose and you need it to happen to advance the story, throw it in. It's a rule of thumb, what your players want.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there. A lot of people use exploration rules and it actually just bogs down the game,
Mhm,
where it's much easier to just say, oh, 2 weeks have passed and you're now at
mhm,
this place.
yeah,
Every time I've used the extreme weather rules, I've changed them slightly to make them more interesting in the moment. So, for
mhm,
example, there was one where it was a big thunderstorm, but actually there were lightning elemental
mhm,
creatures in the thunderstorm as well that they had to fight through. So it wasn't
yeah.
quite the same. I just
I
changed it
like
to
I like sometimes when they're used as, like, a team building exercise. I think it was Jen who's in chat, who did it once where there was a skill check to, like,
mm,
set up a shelter. I'm a big fan of the skill checks. I think that's a 4E
yeah.
mechanic. But I'm a big fan of those for environmental and, weather related stuff. Um, it's just it gets you to think a different way about what you're coming up against.
Yeah, definitely. I've used them quite a few times as well. So I definitely like them. It's funny because quite a lot of people hate on 4E, but then people are
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh, I love skill checks and I love minions and stuff like
Mhm.
that." I feel like there were a few good
I thi
things.
did was sidekicks also a 4E thing?
I think
Is
that
that where
was
or was that
lower.
earlier?
I think that was earlier.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
I'm looking to Fred here because
yeah.
he seems to know everything about every edition ever. But I think that was earlier.
Yeah, I think every edition has things that people really love about it. And it's easy to just say the blanket like this is bad, and that's my opinion on it. But I think every edition has its shining thing that it had that
Mm.
people really enjoy, that doesn't get carried over. And I don't think there's ever anything wrong with reaching back to those gems.
Yeah, definitely. Just take the best bits of them and bring them
Yeah.
back. Okay, we'll go to the last question there. So, as listeners, what do you look for in a D&D podcast or live stream? Do you watch any, or do you just?
I do. I don't watch CR. But I look for an engaging story. I like very character-driven things. I do enjoy combat. I don't necessarily like listening to combat. So nothing too combat heavy. My favorite and still favorite is the homebrew campaign run on Indoor Adventures. That's the campaign that got me into enjoying D&D. One of my longtime friends is playing in it, and I was just bored one night, and she was like, "Well, I'm in this thing. Why don't you watch it?" And it's very character driven. It's pulling from a lot of different genres. The DM who runs that, Simon, is just incredibly creative. He's also running the game that I'm going to be in tonight. And we'll pull from things like literature, pull from video games, and just turn it on its head and create something really cool. I think one of my favorite things he ever did was he had the party fight a bunch of snowmen, and just turn that Frosty, turn the Frosty the Snowman, because they were fighting winter hags. So what would a winter hag have? A snowman army. So it was really cool. And I like things like that. I look for things that feel original or pull from things and turn them into something else that's very original. Yeah, I watch a lot of that channel. I'm trying to think on the spot of who else I go to. I really like Plot Hunters. They're an all femme LGBTQIA table, multiple tables, I believe, at this point. Another good friend of mine is on one of their long running shows, and I really enjoy them. A lot of character driven stuff there too. But yeah, I like things that have a good story to them. I'm there for the escape, not for the number crunching.
Yeah, definitely. I think combat in live streams is quite hard to watch sometimes because it can go on for a long time, and it's fun when you're at the table and there's stakes and stuff like that, but it's quite hard to watch. So stories got to come first, really, when it's D&D podcasts and live streams. And characters, it's just easier if you can connect to at least one of the characters, and you're like, that's my favorite. So that is definitely good. We've had a very last minute question come in by Kayla, so let's do a quick answer to this. What's the best plot twist you've ever encountered in a D&D game?
Finding out that we adopted a younger version of the Big Bad.
Oh, that is a pretty big plot twist, that one.
Yeah. The DM didn't. The game that I'm currently in deals with different timelines, and so it's dealing with the King in Yellow. So for people who are familiar with like Call of Cthulhu, my DM is pulling a lot of inspiration from that. And we adopted a younger version of that is a child clone of the King in Yellow, and yeah, and then we actually met the King in Yellow, and one of our players said that you're my son now. It was just it's just been the most interesting, because she didn't expect us to adopt this child and become a bunch of parents. But we've adopted him, and we found his brother and adopted the brother too. And then we met the Big Bad like in their adult timeline, and I think they're also our child now against their will. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was the biggest plot twist, I think.
Definitely. I feel like your DM's very brave doing the whole timeline thing. That's a lot of strings to put together.
She is absolutely brilliant. She DM'd a D&D game over on Valdoran's channel, in her homebrew world, Ashenfell, that I recommend checking out. And she's getting ready to run Numenera on my channel in the coming months. And I cannot sing her. Laughmaker D&D on Twitter, Kosuke Sigma on Twitch. I cannot sing her praises enough. She is incredibly good at what she does.
There you go. Well, I feel like that's a nice place to end the stream then. The shout out to your DM. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you if they are looking to check your stuff out?
Yeah, you can find me. The name on the screen or over here. Sorry, it's mirrored. It's right there. TheHypeGoblin. I do cosplay and stuff on TikTok and Instagram. I'm doing a series of Q&A videos on my own YouTube channel under the same name. You can find me on Twitch, streaming 4 days a week, playing video games on Thursdays and Fridays with my friends, and on Sundays, we played a D&D homebrew campaign called Nexus Adventures. And in late February, I believe Numenera will be starting up on Saturdays. And then I also just shit post a lot on Twitter. So if you have Twitter, you can find me there too. I don't recommend following there though.
You're not supposed to not recommend it.
I mean, look, if you want the unfiltered goblin, that's where it ends up. I think I scare people more than anything else there. But yeah, you find me on all the places. I'm most everywhere except for Facebook. I don't do anything on Facebook.
Yeah, and all of those links are down in the description as well, so you can just click straight through and yeah, follow her there. So thank you everyone for coming. I will be back next week with another guest, and thank you very much for coming and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And I'll see you all next week.